Good morning, Southside. I'm your anchor, Olivia.
And I'm Jackson. Welcome to Southside Archer Minutes, where we bring you all things Southside and beyond.
In our top news today, Miss Castater is excited to announce Picture Day is approaching. September 28th will be from 8 to 9 a.m. for virtual students and 9 to 2 p.m. for in-person students. September 29th will be noon to 4 for in-person students in school and 4 to 6 for virtual students. Adults and teachers, please check the email for Mr. Minnick to see your designated time. Don't forget to smile nicely, as your photo will appear in the totem.
And now for sports. After suffering a tough defeat last Friday at the hands of Bishop Dwenger, your Southside Archers finally are coming home to face off against the once undefeated Snyder Panthers. However, the record is only 1-2 this year, so go get them, South. Friday's game will allow fans for the first time. Players will receive 4 tickets each, and coaches will receive 2. Unfortunately, the general public is still not allowed to attend.
This show would like to congratulate the cross-country running coach, Taylor Buzzard, and his amazing team showing at the Manchester Invitational. Southside girls finished 3rd place out of 25 teams. Here are the best placements. Lauren Walda at 4th place, Saloni Lacona at 6th place, Jackie Embry 20th place, Grace Gilly placed 29th, Katie Nilbeck at 60th, Fiona GS placed 64th, and Madeline Henser 66th.
And now for today's lunch menu. Breaded chicken sandwich, pre-plated salad, condiments, fries, ketchup, baby carrots, ranch dressing cup, chilled pineapple, fresh fruit, and milk. The take-home meal is chicken green chili, quesadilla, salsa dipping cup, corn, and chilled juice.
And now for the weather. If you haven't noticed, the temperature has dropped significantly in the past few days. Look for this weekend's highs in the lower 80s to high 70s. There is a 20% chance of rain both days.
And now to brighten your COVID dreamy day up, we bring you a pre-COVID pre-mass segment called Martin on the Street from way back in February. Take it away, Martin.
Hello, Archers. I'm Martin, and I'm here with Logan to ask the random question of the day. Next Friday, we're going to have a long break, and we're going to take a day off. What are you going to do on that day?
Probably gonna, watch TV.
Same. Back to you.
Thank you, Martin. And now for today's bad jokes of the day. What do you give to a sick lemon? Lemonade.
What do you call a monkey who loves Doritos? A chipmunk.
And now we wrap up our show today with yet another 100th Anniversary Alumni Series interview. This time, Mr. Truesdale sat down with longtime theater teacher, Miss Kirby Volz. Have a great and safe weekend, Archers. Take it away, Mr. Truesdale.
Hello everyone, this is Mr. Mark Truesdale, class of 1999, and you might notice that I'm wearing a mask. This is actually the first interview of its kind post-COVID. Most of the interviews we've done, the 1st through the 5th, have been, pre-COVID here at Southside High School. So again, I apologize in advance if I'm a little bit hard to hear, but you can kind of imagine me not wearing this. Everyone, good morning and welcome. This is Wednesday, September the 9th, and this is kind of a unique day for several reasons here. One, I'm joined by an outstanding guest, somebody that was actually my teacher here many, many years ago. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about that. But this is our first all-virtual day, so I think it's going to be really neat to interview several teachers today without any kids in here talking to us or bothering us or of any sort. So we have kind of a quiet day so I could talk to some amazing teachers here for the Southside 100th Anniversary Alumni Association. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about our amazing special guest here. This is Mr. Kirby Volz, Southside Alumni, class of 1976. Mr. Volz, it is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mark, for asking. I feel honored.
Okay, so here's how it's going to work today, Mr. Volz. I'm going to go ahead and ask you several prescribed questions that Miss Nancy Mack, I believe, gave to me. But then, of course, we can go off script. We can chat. I want to try and make you feel comfortable because you're my guest today. And at the very end of that, we're just going to kind of go back and forth about what we think about Southside, how it's changed, and we're just going to go off script like we do.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so number one, where did you live while attending South, and did you have any siblings that also went here as well?
We lived in the condominiums that still are in the back of Woodhurst, and I do not have any siblings, but I am actually a 3rd-generation Southsider. My grandfather went here, my mom went here, and I went here.
It's just remarkable. So it's all in the family.
Exactly.
It's a special family
Exactly.
event. Tell me about some of the neighborhoods you passed at the time. Truly, since 1976, this neighborhood has changed dramatically. How did you get to school?
Well, I got to, my grandparents also lived in the condos, and my grandfather would take me to school every day, and then I would walk home, and we would stop at almost every day. A couple friends and I, we would stop at Hook's Drugs, which is now the Family Dollar store on Rudisill and Calhoun, and we would get a bag of red Twizzlers and just eat and talk all the way home. And we just walked home. It was just what we did.
Yeah, I don't think people realize at the time, how important that relationship is. I remember when I was a kid, one of my earliest memories, of my father is when he worked at Lutheran Hospital, which is now, of course, defunct, and it's a park on Fairfield. But we would go and get donuts, and that was a really, cool, special thing. It sounds like you had a really good bond with your grandfather.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
Wonderful.
And we'd, cut through the Harrison Hill neighborhood and past the school and around and by St. John's and cut over to South Wayne and just walk home.
Yeah, and what's so cool about all the people that I've interviewed is it seems to be a general theme that this is a very highly mobile and it's an environment where a lot of people don't take a car, they don't drive, they choose not to take the bus. They just love the neighborhood. They love everything about it, and they walk every morning, rain or shine.
Yep.
To your knowledge, and this kind of segues into the last question, what businesses have changed in the area since you graduated?
Wow. Well, let's see. There was on the corner of Oakdale and Calhoun, right directly across from the school, there was originally was opened as Miller's Ice Cream Store, because I remember my mom talking about going to Miller's every day for lunch. Mm-hmm. And when I was here, it was Louis D's Tuck Shop. And then if you go down to Calhoun and Rudisill, they've just tore the building down actually a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. It had a Baskin Robbins where the subway went in where Baskin Robbins was.
Yep.
And there were, where CVS is now on the other side of Rudisill was the A&P grocery store, and then in that little strip mall on the other corner was Hook's Drugs, Hutner's women's clothing store, Mayer's men's clothing store.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I remember.
It's just remarkable. How many things have changed just in the 30 years or so, which of course if they can in that much time. Now we're going back to Southside specifically. Tell me about some of the teachers that inspired you during your time here at South.
Well, I would have to say the number one would be Mr. Kelly. He was my theater teacher and speech coach, and he was just he is a great guy and was a super teacher and really instilled my love for theater and made me want to be an educator like him. And as well as the knowledge I gained, being on the speech team, and when I coached that later on in my career. And let's see, the ones I remember. Mr. Cowdery was an English teacher. I never had him, but he and his wife were very good friends with my parents. And I had known Mr. Cowdery since I was a small child. He was very tough, but he was a good English teacher. Miss White, who was the journalism advisor. I worked a little bit on the Times, but more on the Totem, and which I am doing now as the Totem advisor. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Sage, who was the head of the math department, and I give full credit to Mr. Sage, because if I had to do what these kids had to do in math with the I-step and all that stuff, I would still be here at Southside High School, because I just am not a good math person. And
you and me both.
He helped me out in understanding, and I guess you could say I got by in math, but the requirements were less then too.
Yeah.
We only had to have 1 year of math.
Yeah.
And once that 1 year was over and I met that requirement, I never took it again.
Yeah. I mean, it's just truly remarkable. I mean, they tell us here, even in the 21st century, in 2020, that one of the most important things that you can do as a teacher is forming that relationship. And it seems like they probably didn't have the same instruction back then. You just immediately went right into, open your book and turn to page whatever.
Yeah, right.
But it seems like those teachers have all had something in common, is they really cared about their students. They went above and beyond. If you were struggling with math, they made it work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this kind of segues perfectly into the last question. You might have mentioned this. Were there any clubs or extracurriculars that you were involved in that really inspired you?
Yeah, well, the theater speech thing was called Mask and Gavel, and so I was involved in that. AFS, which is the American Field Service or something like that, was a foreign exchange program.
Yeah.
I was, well, I'm not a quiet person but I was, when I was here, everybody, you went to all the games, all the basketball, football, regardless whether and I told kids this now, my students now, it didn't matter really whether you liked or it didn't have anything to do with liking or disliking athletics. It was about the social thing. And of course, there was a lot less for us to do than there are for kids now. Not, people worked, but not to the extent kids work now.
Yeah.
And I just wish sometimes that the kids would take more of an opportunity to to go and be involved in get some school spirit, because that's the things I remember about Southside, and being just it was just a good bond, and everybody was an archer, and so.
Yeah, I really hope that bond is still here, and I've certainly noticed from my time here that work seems to be almost more important than the school experience. And I hope that is not true, but I think sometimes it is. And hopefully, back then that was something that was more important. It seems like it was. But
yeah.
Maybe we can try and instill that more in our kids now. Who knows? We're going to try.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Because I think, if I can't editorialize too much, they don't see that this is going to create a better job later. They have a job now, but they can't see kind of beyond that.
Right.
So,
right.
All right. So, speaking of jobs, after you graduated from college, and of course after you graduated from Southside, how was your career path? What sort of trajectory did you take before you became an archer again?
Well, my very first teaching job was in a little Catholic high school in Chicago, and I got that job because my father was attending a I don't want to say workshop, but I guess a workshop in Chicago, and his class was at a party, and one of the people that was at the party he was talking to them. He said they happened to have a job for an English theater person, and my dad said, well, my son happens to be looking for a job, and again, it's that who in the right place, right time. Yep. So I was there and taught there for 4 years, and then I left Chicago because of they were reducing in force, and I was low man on the totem pole. Yeah. And so then I went from there to Howe Military School up in Howe, Indiana. And I was there for 5 years, and I would have probably stayed there longer than I did, but a job at Memorial Park Middle School came open, and so I applied and got the job, and that started then a 20-year stint here at Fort Wayne Community Schools, and I did, when I left Memorial Park, I left Memorial Park because the job at Southside came open. So I, got the job that my theater teacher, Mr. Kelly, had, and so that was like, I just thought that was really cool that I, was able to do that.
Yeah.
And then when the district made some changes in 2010, I moved to Indianapolis and was down there for 5 years. And then I just moved back 4 years ago for some health issues with my father. And the job at Southside, once again, I got a call from a friend saying, there is a job open, why don't you apply? And so here I am, and wanted to restart the theater program here because it had kind of dwindled, and I'd like to think we've got it going again, and so I'm back to being an archer.
What's really remarkable about your journey that I've noticed is that no matter, despite all the years, despite all the places that you've gone, you still kind of gravitate towards this, and not just because it was open, but because you wanted to.
Right.
And that seems like that's a general theme with all the teachers that I've talked to. They could go anywhere they wanted, but they choose to be here because they love what they do.
Yep.
Last one. Any other random comments or anything off script you'd like to say about Southside for posterity?
Well, it's just a place like no other. It really is. I guess the one, if it's a disappointment, I have, and I know I am certainly not the only alum that feels this way, Mark. And you were not here at the time. It really upsets me that we don't have the gym anymore, the old gym.
Yeah.
Because it just, it was just so cool and so unique, and it's too bad that folks like you never got to experience that.
Yeah.
And it just was, it made, that's part of, I think, what helped in promoting school spirit, because the fans were the sixth member of that basketball team, and it made differences in a lot of close games, and it just was historical.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the disappointment. I guess it is a disappointment, but it hasn't stopped me from loving Southside or coming back. But and I know times change and things like that. But anyway, it's just something that I got to experience. That I showed. There's a video that an alum posted of the last game here in the gym, and I was there. But I showed it to the kids and now, and they're like, "Wow, that gym is really cool."
Yeah.
And so. Anyway.
Well, you're certainly not the first person that mentioned that. I think you might have actually been the second. It really was just a huge cultural point in our history. And to kind of wrap this up, I'm going to say a personal comment about Mr. Volz. I had Mr. Volz. It all comes back around in 1996 for speech. He's still here, and he's still inspiring students, and he inspired me to be a better speaker as well. So it all comes back around, Mr. Volz. Don't ever think that what you're doing is not making a difference. You might have 180 students that are bothering you, but 181 that you touch and reach, and that's what's the most important.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Sir, it's been a tremendous pleasure having you here today.
Well, thank you, Mark.
For taking your time out of your day, and have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
Okay, you too. Go Archers.
Go Archers.